Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Ryan Massinopol. I'm a D4 here at the West Virginia University School of Dentistry. I'm from Charleston, West Virginia, and did my undergrad at Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. I took a gap year before dental school and actually worked as a research coordinator at a hospital system down in South Carolina. While I was at Furman, I was on the men's tennis team. I was also able to be a part of a pretty cool undergrad research project that was kind of pertaining to my major in health sciences. I felt like my undergrad experience really prepared me pretty well for dental school. I was able to, with Furman being such a small school, have a variety of experiences and kind of get involved in a lot of different organizations on campus. And I felt like that really kind of helped me transcend my experience into dental school. And then something interesting / unique about me, I actually started making house music when I was an undergrad and DJing a little bit and stuff like that. So I still do that from time to time when I'm not studying in dental school. So my interest in dentistry kind of stemmed from a couple of different shadowing experiences that I got to have. One of which being in high school, I was shadowing a family friend who was an orthodontist. And, at the time I really enjoyed my science classes and stuff like that, but I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to get into. And I was, shadowing this guy, and it was an ortho clinic. And so it was a lot of kids, and I got to see the way that he dealt with the anxieties and, the fear of a lot of these patients. It's not necessarily like they were in any kind of intense pain or anything like that, but their preconceived notions of going to the dentist and having an experience at a dental office was something that, he was really able to completely change. The way that he kind of carried out his practice, he had, all these games and all these different types of things for the kids and stuff like that. And just the way he communicated and kind of eased the anxieties of a lot of these patients was something that I felt like was something I could easily see myself doing, and something that I would want to do in the future. And so then when I started to shadow a little more in undergrad, I was kind of able to see the other side of dentistry, which is more of the clinical setting. I was shadowing a general dentist, and I was able to see not only that aspect, but in addition the way that he built relationships with his patients. It was like every time he would see these patients, he was like catching up with them at like a family reunion or something like that. Like he was just, he was constantly building relationships with his patients, and, that only strengthened the practice itself. It was something that I thought was extremely admirable, and, he was able to get patients out of pain, improve their quality of life, improve their oral hygiene, and that was something that was pretty unique in that you can build these long-lasting relationships while still being in a clinical setting. So the DAT, I ended up taking the DAT between my junior and senior year of undergrad. I had pretty much at this point gotten a pretty solid idea that I wanted to go into dentistry and that it was something that, I really wanted to do. So I decided to take it. I was doing a undergrad research project that summer. So I was doing research full time, like 8 to 5. But what I did was I was able to kind of structure a study schedule around that, and I felt like that was good because I wasn't spending, the 8 hours a day, just sitting through watching these chemistry videos. So it was something that I felt like I'm glad I did it the way I did it, in that I kind of structured it out of doing, a couple of hours a day, like 4 hours a day max. I can't recommend the DAT Bootcamp enough. That is a product I think is super useful in the fact that it had like a study schedule laid out for me. It had all the resources and everything you needed. And then I ended up actually just using the bootcamp app that they've created for the integrated board exam, which I thought was extremely helpful as well too. So yeah, I used the DAT bootcamp. I used a thing called DAT Destroyer. It was like a big, like textbook looking thing with like 700 some questions in a couple of different subjects. I watched all the videos, did all the notes, did everything that did everything the boot camp told me to do, and then ended up doing pretty well. I, entered a little bit of a burnout phase as I was kind of approaching I think I studied for maybe like 10-ish weeks or so. About that ninth or 10th week, I was really feeling pretty burnt out, but, the fact that I had a regimented schedule was really, I think, the most beneficial thing because, you don't feel like watching 15 orgo videos in a day. If you don't do it, you're just going to have 30 the next day. So I felt like, having a seriously regimented schedule and don't extend out the studying for too long. Don't extend it out for 6 months or something like that. I felt like it was, good to be in that phase of life where I was, just studying for the DAT, and doing research and all that, but didn't have a whole lot else going on. And I think that was really beneficial for me. In terms of what set me apart in particular, I felt like I was a pretty strong applicant in that I was fairly well-rounded. I, had a good GPA in undergrad and especially in my health science major, because I know the science GPA is something that they really take into account. I was a Division I athlete, which I think they found, very beneficial because I felt like it really helped me prioritize and, helped me learn the skills of time management as a, 18, 19-year-old, which I felt was really, really important and kind of helped a lot, even in my dental school journey. I think the research experience was great. They loved the fact that it was all done in a clinical setting. I was actually able to do an EKG study, so I was actually able to do my research on actual students in undergrad. So I thought that was really great. I was a part of a thing called the Institute for the Advancement of Community Health. It was like a smaller cohort group of probably about 30 students or so. And I felt like that was another thing too that strengthened my application was some of the other clubs and organizations I was able to be a part of and have certain leadership roles in. I felt like, that's kind of what they're looking for in a dental school application. They're looking for, someone that's well-rounded, and because, while you may not think that has a whole lot of meaning to it, it definitely does in the patient setting. It really helps to be able to connect with a variety of different people. That only makes your clinical experience easier if you can connect with your patients. So in terms of my interview at WVU, I actually got my invite pretty late. I remember I interviewed at the end of November, and that December 1st date was kind of that date that, was the decision date for a lot of schools. So I knew that I wasn't going to be, immediately accepted that next day if I did well in the interview. So I kind of knew that going in, that I was kind of, playing behind, so to speak, a little bit, just in terms of the application cycle and whatnot. But so it was great. It was a pretty long day. We had the standard, they gave us the tour and everything like that. Got to meet with a bunch of current dental students, and they kind of had a lot of current dental students, running the tours and whatnot, and kind of made it very informal to where you could just kind of come up to them and ask them whatever. And they would, be very honest with you about their experience and everything, which I thought was super helpful. We did do lunch with the dean and certain admissions related faculty, stuff like that. And then as the day went on, later in the afternoon, we got into our individual actual interviews. So it was a panel style. So it was one student per 3 faculty or so. And I remember just being extremely nervous for my first interview, not at West Virginia, but my first one. And I felt like that's a skill in and of itself, is learning how to calm those nerves and how to interview. I felt like I improved with each interview, and as I sort of, got comfortable doing it and whatnot, it came a lot easier, and I wasn't sitting there, I'm also not one of those people that I don't go into it with a script of, I have to get these things, I have to tell them X, Y, Z. And I would advise people not to do that because, a lot of the, interviewers, they try to make it very conversational, and they try to ask you a variety of questions. A lot of it is not even related to dentistry. They just want to see what type of person you are, and kind of get to know you a little better, honestly. That's really all it is. And, you have to find what makes you unique and kind of stick out, while at the same time, not like looking like you're just running from a script, because you have to realize that these people see a ton of very qualified applicants. So it's about who can kind of be the most genuine, I think, at the end of the day. In terms of tips for the interview process, I, kind of talked about a little bit of it earlier, but I would honestly kind of double down on what makes you unique. Find your little niche and, kind of expound upon it. These interviewers are listening to so many extremely qualified candidates and so many kids that, could definitely have a spot in dental school. So it's kind of about you differentiating yourself from the pack. And, you can do that in a variety of ways, but, definitely have some things that you would like to talk about, but at the same time, don't have like a very regimented script or anything by any means. Like, don't have these elaborate rehearsed answers. I feel like that just, clouds up a ton of space in your brain, and it's not that beneficial. Like, I remember at one of my first interviews, I was definitely trying to force it a little too much. And, it just makes it tough on you because it doesn't seem very, organic and conversational. Because you got to remember that these people that are interviewing you, they are, hearing a ton of stories and, hearing all these why dentistry type stories. And, when it's not genuine to you, it's hard to make it stand out. And, in order to give yourself the best possible shot, I think it's definitely important to double down on kind of your uniqueness, because at the end of the day, that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember the very basic story that is similar to every other one that they've heard. And so I would say that, and definitely, just keeping it conversational. I think that's something that they'll really, really appreciate, because, when they're selecting you, ultimately, they're looking for somebody who's going to be a good fit at the school and a good representative of the school. And so if you can represent yourself well, you will most likely represent the school well when you're dealing with patients in a clinical setting. In terms of why West Virginia, I'm from Charleston, West Virginia, so I'm an in-state student, in-state applicant. And, that is obviously a big consideration, is the cost of dental school. We at WVU, we are the only dental school in the state, and because of that, we have a huge patient population that really travels from a pretty significant distance. Like, I know I have, I'd say about half my patients travel from over an hour and a half away. And it's a dental school where it serves a vast community. You get a lot of clinical experience, as you enter that third year and transition into clinic. It moves rapidly. And I had kind of heard that from students who have gone through the program and everything. You truly learn by immersing yourself in it. And, we have a very small class size as well. I think our class is, 44 students make up our class. So not a big class at all. You pretty much know everybody by, end of first semester. But, another thing too is the faculty. I was able to kind of build some good relationships even in my interview with a couple faculty members. And that's only gotten better, obviously, while I've been in school. I feel like those relationships are, extremely, extremely important. And we have a great group of faculty and a dean that, are truly behind us and really want the best for us. Transitioning into dental school itself, I thought would be a little easier. One thing that I definitely learned throughout my time was that, these kids are all brilliant in their own way, shape, or form, but, these are all the best students from undergrad, essentially. So your standards are definitely a little different. I was the type of kid in undergrad to where if I got a B, I was, kind of like a little upset. I was just like, oh, okay, we can do better. type thing. But, I recognized very early when that first C came in. I don't even remember what class it was. It was like a physiology test or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I felt pretty well prepared and, clearly was not. So that was something that it kind of got you to realize that, running your own race is a very important thing in dental school. And it's so easy to get caught, comparing yourself to others, and looking to the left and the right, how all these other kids are doing, and trying to compare yourself. Because we all know after being in dental school that you'll have the kids that are, saying how badly they did when they get their test back and they got a 94 and they're complaining about it, stuff like that. But it's really important to, I feel like, put the blinders on and kind of just run your own race while you're in school, especially while you're in, all these didactic classes where there are just tests and exams like constantly. And if you're just comparing yourself to others, that's not going to be beneficial for your own mental health. I read this one thing, I don't remember where it was from, but it said, comparison is the thief of joy. And I felt like that phrase kind of has stuck out to me throughout my entirety of dental school. Because, if you're comparing yourself to others, you're comparing yourself to this great standard. If you're falling short of, what a couple of other people are doing, you're gonna, take it pretty poorly. So, when you start to compare yourself to all the other kids in your classes, you're not going to be having a good time. I remember when I kind of set out kind of in a new headspace and kind of was trying to think in that way, during my second year at dental school. I remember my grades actually improved because I was only really focusing on me and what I could control versus, how everybody else is doing and stuff like that. And I felt like that for me was something that it was definitely a maturing experience. And I'm glad that, I had the experience of, facing all these challenges in school. But yeah, I would say definitely just, when you transition into dental school, learn to run your own race. That's for sure. A typical day as a D1. We at WVU had class from 8 to 5. Classes are, mandatory, whether you like it or not. You will be in that classroom from 8 until 5, usually most days. Occasionally, you get out, and have some breaks if the class ends earlier and whatnot. But it's very, very time intensive. So you can easily, if you're, immediately coming home and studying, you can put your head in the iPad and in the books for 4 hours and you look up and it's 9 o'clock and you haven't eaten, you haven't looked outside, you haven't done anything. So I would say very, very important as a D1 to get yourself on a good routine, and something that works for you. What works for your buddies isn't always going to work for you. But I remember I was feeling the best when I would kind of, I would wake up, kind of get a workout in, get a sweat in, and then go to class from there. Because I felt like, that was one thing that I could control, is my ability to just get up and go to the gym, and I felt like it was kind of like a little therapy session for me. Like I could put my headphones in for an hour and just kind of, veg out, so to speak, and really kind of clear my head a little bit. So another thing too, sleep is very key when you're a first year dental student. I remember trying to, cram and whatnot for my first anatomy and physiology exam, and quickly realized that cramming is not the way to go in dental school. So if you set yourself up on a good routine where, you're getting a good amount of sleep, whatever works for you per night, you can definitely stay on top of your work. But, one thing I like to do is I try to keep in touch and stay up to date with friends from undergrad and stuff like that. It's definitely nice to have a little outlet from dental school, because it can definitely get very grueling at parts. And then definitely get a good support system going in terms of your friends in dental school. Our group had a OneNote that we all kind of shared and used to collab on notes and exam prep and stuff like that. So get a good support system around you and get a good routine, and things will definitely work out. what excites me about WVU? I think that honestly, it's the faculty, and that may come across as cliche and whatnot and may be used a lot, but I truthfully think we have some of the most caring and hardworking faculty out there. Everyone is kind of there to help you, and the moment that you realize that is the moment that a lot of doors start opening for you. The faculty are there to support you. All the staff is there to help you out. You're not alone in running this race, that's for sure. Say hey to everybody. Some of the brightest and, nicest people I've met have been, people on the custodial staff that I'll just say hey to in the mornings when I see them. And it's about kind of creating a community at where you're at. And I feel like that's what West Virginia does a great job of. And that sense of community and building this relationship is what kind of sets WVU apart. I feel like, with the small class size that we have, I feel like that is definitely to our advantage in that regard. So you've built relationships with these faculty, and they know, stuff about your own story and, your personal life and stuff like that. And you're really able to collaborate on a much different level, when you really get to know and appreciate your faculty. So D1 and D2 years were definitely a little tougher to enjoy than the past 2 years. You're studying a lot. You're, really, really grinding from, just from 8 to 5, and then you've got to study after that. If you're a D1 or a D2 and, you're seeing this, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to get through it. So that would be my biggest advice. Other pieces of advice I would give to anybody coming into dental school is to realize that, there's going to be a lot of phases throughout dental school. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns, and, you're not going to know everything. And you have to realize that. You have to kind of understand that, school is going to beat you down a couple of times, but, you just got to keep rolling with the punches, so to speak. I think the one thing I talked about earlier would obviously be to put those blinders on, run your own race, and realize that, you're here for you, and, you're here to become a better clinician, to be a better provider. While our grades are obviously very important and everything, and my physiology teacher won't thank me for saying this, you got to realize that when a patient comes in, into the clinic, say in the urgent care clinic, and they're in pain, us explaining the Krebs cycle is not going to get them out of pain. And when I kind of realized that we're here for a greater purpose, I felt like things got a lot easier. So, obviously, take your classes very seriously and do the best you can. But at the end of the day, realize that, you're here to learn how to become a better clinician for, the people around you, and learn how to take care of them. Be easier on yourself, give yourself a little leeway. You're not going to be perfect in dental school. It's going to throw everything at you. But if you're putting the blinders on and running your own race, you're sure to come out on top. That's all I've got. Thank you guys for listening and watching today. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions about dental school, any application related questions or any dental school related questions or thoughts or anything like that, you can DM me on Instagram. My handle is @rmass1. Or you can just look up my name, Ryan Massinopol. Thank you to FutureDDS for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that I could kind of give back a little bit. They've been, such a great resource, and they are such a great resource for you guys out there as pre-dents and everything. So, soak it all in, and thank you guys again. I appreciate it.